Welcome to Building the Best You, a destination for you to reimagine what is possible in your life and then create it. Welcome, everybody. I'm your host, Jeanne Collins, and today's subject applies to everybody. We are going to talk about stress. I have Karen Canham here today, and she has a business called Karen and Wellness. Imagine that. And we are going to talk about stress. So, Karen, thank you so much for joining me to talk about this ever so important subject.
Thanks for having me, Jeanne.
Oh, I'm excited. So we were supposed to record this right before the holidays, talk about a major stress time of the year, and we ended up moving it. And so we're now recording this in January, but this is going to come out in February, where I feel like there's plenty of stress going on any time of the year. So I am really excited to talk about all of this. And we're going to talk a little about neuroscience too, which I love. Okay. You have an incredible background, and I would love for you to share with people how you got to being the founder of your own business.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. My background is a lot. It's a lot of different, my hands were in a lot of different places. And a lot of that journey was just figuring out who I was, but also this part of me, that perfectionistic part, and that it's never enough. And I love learning. So that's part of what we'll probably talk about in the future of this podcast today as well. But yeah, my background started in fashion, and then I switched into banking. And now here I am in this wellness world, which, to be honest with you, was a passion of mine since I was in high school. I was a lifeguard and then a personal trainer, and then it just evolved and evolved. And it was something that I did on the side when I was in my corporate career. And finally, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing in my corporate career. I mean, I loved that I was able to build teams and, coach people on my teams and the relationship building of it all. But the baking industry was not my jam. I did not love it whatsoever. And so I finally got to a point was like, I'm not going to do it anymore. I mean, I make good money doing it, but it's not bringing me happiness. And so what I'm going to do is really risky, which I've done a few times in my life. And I'm just going to take this full time and see what happens.
Which I love that. Okay. I've done that also, multiple risks. So, where were you in your career when you decided that you were going to do that? And how did you do it? And it's not the most important thing of our story, but I think it is important because I think it helps empower women to different ways that they can go about getting out of things that they are stuck in where they feel like this isn't my calling.
Yeah, this is really interesting. And there's something personal that I can talk about here too that came to mind when you said that. But as far as my career goes, it's totally male dominated. I would go to conferences and be the only woman in the room, which has a lot to say for it. It's kind of like, wow, I'm the only woman in here. It was also really uncomfortable at times. And I started to realize that there's just a certain way that things are, and there's only so much I can do to influence people and make changes in just the way that things are. And there was a lot of things that I just didn't like, and it felt, speaking about the nervous system, it was just like bumping up against my nervous system all the time, like I'm not okay with this. My body's screaming like, this is not okay for you. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's true for everyone. Some women might love it, right? And they might thrive in it. But for me, it just wasn't. And so I just kept overriding that. I was like, well, I have to, I have to make this amount of money. I was living in Los Angeles at the time. I have to keep this title. I have to get to the next title. Yeah, it just was all of a sudden, there was experiences where the certain company that I was working for that I was just like, this really goes against who I am. And it is not okay. And even though I've done my best, I feel like I've done my best of what I can do and show up how I am and try to influence people around me. And of course, in that time and world, there's COVID going on. There's lots of politics things going on. There's lots of like uproar and all this stuff that it was just kind of like, for me, enough is enough. And this is not what I want to do in the world. And what I want to do is really be able to help people show up in a way that's authentic to them and that they feel like they're in this flow state of life.
I love that. Did you know, though, that that was what you wanted to do? Or did you just know you needed to do something different?
I knew that I wanted to be in some type of coaching aspect because I was doing it on the side. And I love that portion of the industry that I was in.
Yeah.
But when I was like, I'm done, I quit, I did go back and get other certifications specifically to the nervous system because that really interests me. And so I really started with my coaching. It was more of like nutrition, movement type of coaching, which is a lot of people need and is actually an easier route for a business, to be honest with you, because people understand
They
it.
understand that. They do.
Yeah. But I picked the hard. Yeah. And so through my own experiences and just starting really working on myself in my 20s is really when it started until now I'm in my 40s. And all that work that I've done is, listen, there's no one specific thing that's going to help the same person, and everybody's different, and it's important to find what's going to work for you.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people that I talk to in this realm, we do a lot of the same things and we speak about them in a different way. Our language is different. And so ultimately, what I'm doing with people is really the deep work. And that can be really scary for people. And a lot of people are like, no, I'm good with how I am. It's okay. The status quo I'm keeping, like, I'm just fine with it. Right. So yeah, I'm in a spot in my business now where I'm really trying to communicate more clearly and get the messaging out of like, it's really not that scary. And, how things can really, I like to say it's like, it does feel like kind of like when you were a child, and you felt like you were more in this flow. There wasn't all these things of like, I got to do this, I need to do this. It feels really stressful. It feels really heavy. There's all this pressure. And so, yeah, it's really near and dear to me. And I'm really passionate about it because it is a huge transformation that people can go through.
Yeah. So what does neurosomatics mean? Because you have that on your website. You specialize in neurosomatics. So in a simplistic sense, what is that?
That's a really great question. So I basically use two modalities now with my individual clients. And one of those is somatics. And so that would be somatic experiencing. And what we're doing is feeling into the body. That can be something that's a little bit more simple of we're just feeling into the sensations throughout our body. Or it can be something more specific if we're talking about a specific event that may have even been traumatic to you that you went through. And we're reliving that and we're feeling what those sensations are feeling into the body. Those things help us to not only heal, but it helps us to be able to expand that window of tolerance that we have. And so for your listeners, just like there's a certain window that we have of what we're able, stress, we can name it like that, of like what we're able to handle. And what we're trying to do with the somatics is we're trying to increase how much we're able to handle. We can also call that the capacity. Our capacity expands as we do these exercises. And then we're able to be our window, that regulated place that we're in, is much larger. And so that's ultimately what we're trying to do. There's a lots of science that goes into that with the brain and all that too, but that's just kind of a easy way of explaining it. And then the second thing that I really use is parts work therapy. And so what that is looking at these patterns that we've had in our life. They've most likely came to fruition when we were children. And how are they showing up for us today? How are they helping us today? How are they harming us today? And then really a big piece of that is accepting those pieces of us. So I think I mentioned when we were recording, a big one of mine is this perfectionism piece.
Yes.
And perfectionism, most people are on the scale. Everyone's on the scale. I tend to be way over here and this more very type A perfectionist.
Yep.
And it became harmful for me, right? It was like nothing was ever good enough. I was overthinking everything. It would take me a long time to do my work because it wasn't up to my standards. And that can cause a lot of stress in itself. So we work on those things and we experience those in our body. Where are they in our body? Then what do we feel around those in our body? And we start to form a relationship with them. They're never going to go away. They're always going to be there. It's just a matter of forming compassion for these things, understanding why they evolved, understanding why they're still there, and then deciding in our present life and our present moment, like, yeah, I do need this right now. This is helping me, because perfectionism isn't bad. It does a lot of great things too. And then deciding like, this is really getting in my way right now.
Yes. Well, and what's interesting about what you said is it's it's recognizing there are spectrums of behavior for everyone and finding where on that spectrum you are. And then also, what's your okay place as well? Because what might be stress or perfectionism to one thing might not be to someone else. And so it really is about you. And I would think it's not only about you and your personality, but back to the somatics, the body part of it. It's what's the impact that that is having on your physical body.
Yeah, again, everybody's different. And so I might be in a place where, my perfectionism, I can see it as it's really like causing roadblocks for me. And somebody else is like, "Oh, I know I'm a perfectionist and I love it." And it's getting me all these things, right? And it's not for anyone else to decide. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter if someone else is labeling you as a perfectionist, that's on them, right? It's
Yeah.
for you to really decide like, this is who I want to be. This is what I'm okay with. And this is, helping me get to where I want to be, or it's not. And I feel like I'm in this flow and not this stress. And you're right. These things that I'm mentioning, a couple things, like things live in our body. So if we don't move those things through our body, whether it was like an argument with our spouse or whatever it was, something that could be a lot more severe, right? And we don't process through that, it stays there, which can cause a lot of chronic conditions. There's even, you asked me about a book, and one of the books I'm reading right now is Brain Energy. And it's really interesting just to talk about how your metabolic health really rules everything. And that rules what we're talking about here, too. The stress component of what we're dealing with can really affect our metabolism and then can lead to so many different conditions that we could have. And I will say for myself, one of the things that was happening with me when I finally was like, I'm not doing this anymore, was that I did have an autoimmune condition diagnosed, and it was really scary for me. I've always been really healthy. And so I went to, the only way I knew about this is because I had a lot of testing done that you normally would never get done,
Right.
and found out that I had Crest syndrome. And of course, Google went down that road of like, what does that mean? And it's like really scary. But I could feel the physical effects from it. And that's something that I'm still working on today. I got that diagnosis maybe 3 years ago, and it's still something that I'm working on today to keep in check.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I would think being an expert in how your nervous system works is really helpful
Yes,
because
it
there's a
is.
lot you could do to cure yourself. So I am curious, the word stress. So I come from a background very similar to you. I worked in corporate America, woman in the boys club, so much stress. I got fired. So I didn't make the choice to leave. I got fired and I was almost 50. So I had done it for 20 some odd years. And I think one of the things that I found so interesting after I got fired is I always used to say to everybody, I have a lot of stress, but I'm paid really well to deal with the stress. Like that's part of my job is to manage stress and to manage that high level of stress. And that's one of the reasons why I get paid as well as I do. But I did not realize until I got fired and I removed myself from that environment, both physically, emotionally, mentally, how much stress was impacting my overall health and my body. So I
Mhm.
am curious, do people come to you because they've gotten to that point, or they come to you and they don't even know the label of the stress is really what is maybe causing all of this?
There's a lot of information out there now. And so I think people have a better awareness of certain things, whether it's, that stress affects my body and it can lead to me having dementia in the future or heart
Right.
attack or.
Yeah.
But a lot of people do not know how numb they are. We talk about this fight or flight a lot. And mainly what I see is that most people who come to me, they're in a free state. And so they're really, they're not present. They're going through the motions. And to be able to get them to even feel into their body is a process. I think a lot of people, when you were talking, a lot of people, still the majority of people is like, it's a badge of honor to wear that you are, have a certain title. And it's like, well, I'm important and, I deal with these things and I'm this. And I remember one time I was working, this is when I was in LA, which is a very different culture than Chicago of where I grew up. And I remember one time I went out with some women that I worked with. And when I was talking about, I had left the company that they were still working at, and I was at a new one and I had a higher level title. And I wasn't in a way of like, oh, look at me, which I feel like maybe it did come off to them like that looking back, but it was more of like me acting stressed. And we're out to dinner and people are still needing me. And I responded with the way of like, well, I'm important because people
Right.
need me. And then like, oh, woe is me because of this stress. And
Yes.
their reaction to me, they didn't say anything, just their body language was a big wide eyes wide open of like, yeah, this is not cool. This is
Yeah.
not who we want to be or like how we want to be.
Right.
And from that moment on, I've really shifted. But yeah, most people come to me of like, a lot of people are still like, well, I'm really important and I carry a lot. And it's no wonder I'm stressed. And yeah.
Yeah. And yes, that's true. And you are. However, life is short and you have balance. And if you want to live a long time, what are you doing to help yourself do that? So, do you mind if we dig in just for a little bit about what you actually help people learn what to do? Like, how are you helping them actually learn? I'm guessing in this, and I could be wrong here, but I'm guessing that you are trying to teach people skills through your process and through your coaching that they can then apply forever once they've learned how to do some of the things that you coach people on and help them work through. Am I correct in saying that? And if so, can you give some examples of things that people might know and understand so they could understand what that process is like?
Yeah, I will preface by saying that most people who are coming to me have done a lot of therapy work. They've done a lot of lifestyle changes, their diet's pretty healthy. They might do mindfulness exercises. I mean, there's different things that they might do, but they're still like, it's just there's got to be more to this. Like I've got to be able to feel better than this.
Yeah.
I like to state that because there is, in my opinion, from the work that I've done on myself and then what I see with clients, there is kind of a process that you need to go through to be able to do this kind of work. There has to be some self awareness, pretty big self awareness before you come in and do this type of work. And so, a lot of the clients that are coming to me, they are very self aware, they are very insightful, they are highly intelligent, and they know all the things. They just really don't know how to make those behavior changes. Part of that is that that's what we put out there a lot of like, oh, awareness, awareness, awareness. And then it's like, okay, yeah, but now what do I do with it? And so that's
Right.
ultimately what I do. When I'm in with sessions with people, there is not a lot of talking. There is like, and I have to like, okay, we're closing the book on the talking and we're getting into the body. And sometimes I can tell like people are fighting it because they're like, I don't want to go there. So yeah, I mean, we'll do, and I'm usually in contact with them all the time. Like they're in contact with me. So I'm aware of what's going on. And so, however, I guide them through these sessions that we're doing, they can be things that have happened in the past or they're affecting them currently. It's a current thing that's going on at work. And then I'm guiding them through with the somatic experiencing and then going deeper into parts work. And
Right.
then at the end, then we anchor them back out, orient them back, and then, we have a little bit of a conversation and then it's on to the next thing. But I communicate with them all the time. I provide that support because it's really this work is it's a new skill. We're rewiring the brain, we're learning. So it needs to be something that's done consistently for them not to lose the progress.
Right. That makes sense. So is it similar to like breathwork journeying where you're awake, yet you're trying to tap a little bit into your subconscious in terms of tapping into your body? Is there a similarity to that?
Very similar. And
Okay.
I use breath work in my sessions as well.
Okay.
It's a certification that I've gone through.
Yeah.
So yes, and I feel like the breath work can really prime you and open you up to be able to do that deeper level of work into the somatics and then the part work
Sure.
therapy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm assuming you do this. Do you do it in person and online? Only online?
I do both. Mostly what I
Yeah.
do is online, but I
Yeah.
do meet with people in the area as well.
Yeah. So, how do you take that and help corporations? Because I know you also work with corporations, and I'm kind of envisioning like I come from sales and I'm sort of like envisioning a sales meeting and someone would hire you and you'd come in. And I'm like, but you're sitting in a room with all these people. And how do you do this? How do you take some of what you do and apply that to the corporate environment? Or does it not happen on that big scale as I'm envisioning it?
Oh, it does. And it's really interesting because everyone is so different. And
Yeah.
I run those very bespoke. So I meet with whoever it is, the owner of the company or HR, whoever, and we talk about like what are their goals to get out of it. And then I put together a program for them. It's usually we'll start with like a workshop type of modality. And I track things. So I think it's really important, especially for corporations. But I do this with my individual clients too, is I give them surveys so that they can see like what these changes are because this work is a little less tangible. And so that's been important in my work, especially with corporations. But mostly what we're doing in these scenarios is the same type of thing. I mean, I'm getting them into their body. It's really ranges, right? I might work with someone who's in healthcare and they have like a very different thinking than someone who I might work with who's like all men, blue collar.
Yeah.
And so I have to really change my approach, change my analogies, and just change the workshop in terms of like the people that I'm working with.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that. We interviewed someone, it was now maybe almost a year ago, and she works in the spiritual space. And so she works in the energy healing space and she works with corporations. And she had come up with her own entire vocabulary to describe what she did. And they were not words that we would normally use in the spiritual space and in the energetic healing space because corporations were kind of looking at her like she was crazy. So she had to kind of adapt her vernacular to these corporations. She's like, what we're doing isn't any different, but I can't talk to them like that because that's not the background that they have. But yet we are able to teach those modalities. You just have to tweak it a little bit, which I thought was interesting. I'd never thought of that. I thought that was kind of cool though.
Yes, I can relate. I
Yeah.
completely made that mistake when I went in to my
Yeah.
first corporate client. And of course, I have my own mentor, and I was like, I was having a hard time like communicating.
Yeah.
And she was like, you need to use analogies and you need to use analogies that men would get. So let's talk about like mechanics of a car, for
Right.
example. And I was like, oh, okay.
I love it. I love it. But you're accomplishing the same thing. So let's talk about learning for a minute because you talked about being passionate and learning, and you've got all sorts of certifications and you've done so much. How do you decide what you're going to learn next to apply to your practice?
Right now, I'm at a big X. No, I'm
No more
not.
learning?
Not right now. I think I was in a place, again, this is that work that we're talking about of I was in a place of like I kept getting more and more certifications where it was a distraction from me moving my business forward. Listen, I always think there's things to learn, but me being on this podcast is kind of like how I'm learning now. So I'm connecting with more people in this space and learning from those people and learning as I talk, and then, I can review myself of like what I need to skill up on, right? So I don't have like any specific like certification in mind that I want to go for right now. I think there's things that I see sometimes that it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to sign up for that. And then I'm like, no, you're not. You're not going to do that now. So my main focus right now is focusing on getting clearer and clearer and clearer on what my messaging is in my business. And really like, there's too many, for me right now, there's too many people I'm trying to help. I'm
Mm,
working with corporations, I'm working with individuals, I do groups. And it is when I talk about, all these are like bespoke that I do with corporations, it takes a lot of time and energy, which isn't
yes.
a bad thing, but it's starting to take me away from really getting specific. And I don't feel like I need more certifications. I feel like I need to be more strategic on who I'm helping that is very like specific so I can get better and better at that and helping that specific type of person.
Okay. As an entrepreneur who is sort of a learning junkie, I love that you said that because I feel like I am constantly wanting to learn more, learn more, learn more. And it's only been recently that I've had to sort of slow down that pace to say, wait, but you have to actually focus on what you do have already and advance what you have already. But I think this will resonate with a lot of entrepreneurs because a lot of entrepreneurs, that is not the way that we normally work. We're not normally wired that way. So I'm hoping people can kind of learn from you in that that's actually a good thing and to recognize for yourself and your body. There are times that you do need to learn and then jump in and learn, but then there are also times where it's okay to not be going and going and going and type A and grow and grow and grow and advance and all of the things that go with being an entrepreneur, especially in the wellness space. There's no lack of things to learn about here.
Yeah, it's a very different shift in mindset, and I look back on my life, especially my adulthood, and I'm like, if I would not even my adulthood, I mean, I think childhood, I played the piano for so long, and then I got distracted by other things, and that's something that I really wish I would have stuck with.
Yeah.
And I even look back, yeah, in childhood, and then all the things I was doing, and how your energy is just spread all over the place. And if I would have just honed in, how different that would have been. And I'm not saying it's like good or bad. That's just where I am right now of like, I don't need to know everything. I need to be very specific and my own vision of how I want to help people. An example of that would be I work with a neurosurgeon, and there's so many things I could learn and I could ask, right? And
Yeah.
then there's like the business component of that he has too, which he's way years later in his business than I am, right? So there's so many things that I find myself of like, "Ooh, ooh," and I wanna ask the question, and I'm like, "No, just
Great.
I'm gonna stay in my lane, and I'm gonna get better and better at, like, what I'm doing."
Yeah. Good for you because that's hard to do as an entrepreneur. So good for you. Okay, so I'm curious. I would love to know a little bit about your daily life because I think there are so many modalities out there and there are so many things that we all can do to keep ourselves grounded, centered, focused, mindful. And I'm always curious because this gives our listeners ideas as well. What do you do for yourself to make yourself a priority in your own life and maintain your personal wellness?
So this is a really good question, and I wanna preface this by saying that even me, as someone who is a practitioner of this stuff, goes through my own seasons, and I'm going through a separation right now, and so it's a very big upheaval on my
Yeah.
system. And so a lot of what I'm doing is intentionally I am trying to slow down and I am saying no to these things because I want to give my system the time to really process through this separation and feel it all.
Yeah.
And with that being said, there's a lot of like sadness that comes with that. And so how do I keep myself in a place where I can continue to show up? And the biggest thing for me that is really kind of I'm proud of. I struggle to say that word because I'm pretty much I'm a humble person, so to say that I'm proud of, but I am proud, and it's very different of how I would have shown up before is I would have completely collapsed and been like I can't do any of this. I can't show up for other people.
Yeah.
And instead, it's like I've learned how to communicate of like I'm going through this process and use that as a connection piece with people that I'm speaking with, not with my clients necessarily, but people that I'm meeting in this world. And with that being said, things that are really important to me that I do to keep myself grounded and also being able to do, this deeper type of work is I walk.
Mm.
Um, I love nature. I came from California. I'm now in Florida.
Yeah.
I was a huge hiker in California. And so I've had to adjust to this flatness over here. But I'm relearning like there's this tropical beauty. And so when I'm out walking, I'm looking at all the plants and like all the colors and I'm feeling that bilateral movement of my feet and just like the sun and being out in nature is really healing for me. So that's a non-negotiable for me every day.
Yeah.
Nutrition is a non-negotiable for me. I wouldn't say I'm strict on what I eat, but I'm very mindful of like, this is how it'll make me feel if I eat this. And I really don't want to feel that way.
Yeah.
Or vice versa. I really do this will make me feel this way and it'll be great.
Right.
So that's also a non-negotiable. And I would say the third non-negotiable for me right now is not losing connection with people. So not allowing myself to shut down and isolate during this time. That's a loss for me. It's to stay connected with new people, old people, and be able to authentically talk about like the situation that's going on with it without it overtaking my life.
Right. So you said a couple things there that I have to just like, first of all, I'm sorry about your separation, but congratulations on your separation. Doors closed, doors open. I know that sounds very cliche, but it's true, right?
I get it. Yes.
I am in a state of massive grief and loss in my life. I just lost my father, who was by far my best friend in the world. And so you said two things that I want to absolutely just say again so that people don't miss them. First one is you're allowing yourself to feel all the feelings. And I had someone say that to me after my father passed away. And I hear that in my head on a very regular basis to make sure you are feeling all the feelings and give those feelings space. And I think that's really important in just life and in personal growth is to give yourself permission to give your feelings space. So thank you for saying that. And then the second thing you said, which is you said my favorite word of all time, which is non negotiable. So thank you. Thank you. You said it twice. And that is one of my favorite words is for people to identify for themselves what are their non-negotiables at that point in time and make those truly non-negotiable in your own life. And if you don't have non-negotiables that relate to you taking care of yourself, you have to have them because if you don't have them, no one's going to have them for you. So thank you for using that word because I think it is a really important way for women in particular to make themselves a priority and to really become best versions of themselves as if they have their non-negotiables, whether it be with work, with people, or with their own health. It's important to have them on all subjects, quite frankly. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I love that you pointed out that woman piece because part of me going through this separation, I mean, there's a lot that comes up, a lot of processing that's going on. And one of those things is that I need to show up in a different way for myself than I ever have before if I
Yeah,
want to have this life that I envision, and no one else is going to do it for me.
right. It's true. No one else is. No. But think of how exciting it is when you can create that and being an entrepreneur and having your own business part of that, I feel, in the personal wellness space is that we have an obligation to inspire and empower other people. And part of that is being honest with what we're going through and with our journeys. Because if you never talk about it, you're missing the opportunity to connect with other people or to potentially help other women in particular by just making them feel like they're not so alone because, oh, you did that too? Okay. And whether it's you did something this year or 10 years ago, it doesn't matter. It allows a connection point. And I think women are really craving that right now in particular.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like this space has been a space, this wellness space has been a space of not that for a
Yeah.
long time of, I'm putting out this facade of who I am. And I never am going to take that mask off and
Yeah.
show, like, I'm human too. And that's part of what's really important to me is how do I do that? That's been difficult for me to do in my past and in my career. I didn't know how to navigate that space and show up of like, this pain that could be going on in your personal life. And that's part of what I teach these corporations because that does get brought up a lot of, that I'm supposed to leave my personal life at the door. And what I'm trying
Yeah.
to say is like, well, that's not reality. And we need to like rethink about how we go about this.
Sure.
Yeah.
And we're not robots. And I think if, talk about being a type A perfectionist person, if that's what you're trying to achieve with everything in life, you're just setting yourself up to fail. And corporations are setting themselves up for failure as well if that's what they expect from their companies. And I can say I love the work that you do, especially because I'm sure it ties in very much to what type of corporate culture do these organizations want to have. And I think something that is so important is a corporate culture that acknowledges people for who they are as people first, not just who they are as an employee within that organization. And that creates a really special culture. So I would think it's really rewarding to be a part of that as an entrepreneur. So that's cool.
Yeah, it's difficult because a lot of corporations are like, nope, this is the way that it's going to be, and this is how it's going to be run, and we don't allow emotions in our corporation,
Right.
But yeah, I mean, even a conversation I had recently with a recruiter and how she recruited, and it was like, I know within 1 second of getting on a call with someone if they're going to be right for the job, and I was like, whoa, hold up, 1 second, one
That's quick.
second. So yeah, it is really rewarding when you can communicate with people and they can start to understand, like, if we do this, and like the shift that it brings and how much more humanness there
Yeah.
is. And then it's really cool. And then to see the ripple effect that it brings to their families. And
Yeah.
mhm,
That's
mhm.
amazing. Okay. So two more quick questions and then thank you so much for all your time. So first of all, is there anything that I didn't ask you that you want to make sure we cover about your practice or information that you think is really valuable that we didn't talk about? Did I miss anything?
I don't think you miss anything. I just think one of the things that's come to me within the last couple of days is I want to rebrand and I want to call my company Take It Down a Notch.
Ooh, I love
Um,
that.
it's something that my niece says.
Yeah.
She's 3. Of course, she learned it from us, but it's really important to me that things do not have to be so hard the way that
Yeah.
we've made them, and how things are put out there of, all these things that we should be doing and how we should be behaving and all the things. It's just like, let it go, you
Yeah.
know?
Oh, that's a beautiful name. That is fantastic. I love that. Congratulations. All right. So we mentioned one book, which I will put in the show notes. Are there any other books that you have read that you think are just incredibly impactful that you think the listeners should go and read?
Yeah, this is kind of silly I'm saying this, but this book called Bringing Home the Dharma, it's by that guy that writes all the Chicken for Soup
Yep. Uh
books.
huh. Yes.
Um,
Yes.
I guess I say that because it's like people will be like, oh, yeah, well, you know that guy, right? But this book in particular was really life changing for me. I read it in my 20s, and it really is about coming back to your true self.
Mm,
And it's based off Buddhist philosophies. And I just really loved it. It really resonated with me. It's something that I'll send my clients still to this day. There's a lot of great principles in there of just like, you know, being who you are.
yeah.
Yeah.
Which is beautiful, right? Connecting to yourself. Oh, well, thank you so much, Karen. It was such a pleasure to meet you. I will put in the show notes everything so people can follow you. They can check you out on your website. They can reach out if they're interested in working with you. The fact that you do a lot of remote work is really powerful. I personally have done somatic work remotely and it's totally doable. You don't have to be in front of someone in person. And it's a beautiful thing because then you can find the right person who can work with you. So I thank you. Stress, every one of us has it. So I think you bring a gift to the world by being able to help people manage and deal with stress because there isn't anyone who doesn't have it. So I thank you for that. Thank you for being a guest, and we'll definitely stay connected. Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of Building the Best You. If you are ready to take a deeper dive into transforming your life, check out my Empowerment Fundamentals course on my website, houseofjermar.com. Thank you, and I will see you next week with another inspiring guest.